Hi everyone, welcome back to the Little Hedge Grove. Today's upload is a step away from some of the storytelling that I've been doing lately. Today I wanted to really get into one of the very first things that I learned about the Fae through my connection and channeling with the Fae, and then take that even a step farther about how we as humans can learn a bit from this aspect and how we might use it in healthy ways in our own lives. So, what am I talking about? Authenticity. Now, that is a really big word. And when I say big, I don't mean literally the length of the word. I mean, it's a weighted word. It's big. It carries a lot of weight to what this means. So, for starters, what does that even mean? What is authenticity? It means being real or being the real true self that you are. If you take away all of the false guises, societal programming that you've been given, the roles that we all play in some capacity in our lives. And the first thing I learned from the Fae is that they are truly authentic. They are always their truth, pure and undeniable without any filtering. They are raw nature and wild. Now, some people may have their own preconceived feelings on the Fae, and that is fine. I'm not telling anyone what or what not to believe. What I'm doing is conveying what I have received through my channeling with Atri, who is the Fae that I am able to communicate with. If this is your first time here, welcome, first of all. Hi. But also, please feel free to see my previous video on my true encounter with a Fae if you'd like a better understanding of the Fae that I'm talking about in this reference of communication. Anyway, that out of the way. The first thing I learned when I started communicating with the Fae was that they are completely raw and true to who they are and what they are feeling or experiencing at all times. They are pure nature. They are spawned from nature, and nature doesn't siphon feelings. What I mean by that is that we, for example, when we tend to feel something or an emotion, we internalize it first. We mentally take the time to assess just how much we want and are going to show. Think of all of us having one of those strainers that people use in a kitchen to drain water out from like noodles or different things that you're cooking in water. We assess, and depending on the situation, decide how much of our real emotion or even ourselves is going to slip through visibly to the outside world. We learn very early on to control our emotions, and that certain situations dictate different emotional behaviors and even just behaviors in themselves. I like to call this the emotional siphoning. It's my own word. Yes, I made it up, but it works. It works, especially in this situation. But it doesn't just end there with, like I said, just with emotions. We learn very, very early on in our lives different things like, don't do this. This isn't what a girl does or a boy does or a good person does. Girls don't sit that way. Boys don't cry. These are all examples of roles. We learn these roles that dictate who we need to be by society and how we should present as, for whatever reasons. It can be societal norms, religious ideologies that we grew up with, gender roles that we were taught, parentally taught, even just mannerisms or morals, etc., etc., etc. This goes on and on. By the time we are old, we have carried so many perceived roles of who we are supposed to be and act like that honestly most of us don't even know who we truly are at the core if we take all of these learned things that we just talked about and took them away. Who are we really under it all? Who are you? Are we even somebody without these roles and ways that we're supposed to be? Have we nurtured this hidden person inside? Have we even met? I mean, think of all the things that we have been told. This is how an adult behaves and acts. This is how a parent should be and dress and act. This is how, insert whatever job title that you have, is supposed to be like out in the public eye. I know, for example, my father was a doctor in this small little town. In all of our childhood, he would voice how he and we had a presence to uphold because of his position. And of course, that trickled down to us as his children as well. Not saying that's a healthy, good thing, but it happened. In his mind, he had to look a certain way, and our whole family had to look and present a certain way. And there were things he couldn't do or say, including us, or it would make his image as the town doctor look bad. We are told not to cry or express certain things or mannerisms that feel natural to us all the time, out of fear of social embarrassment and not being quote-unquote normal. We are taught to withhold our truths and authenticity until we assess it internally within our rational minds, whether or not this is acceptable in XYZ situation for the role that you are in and the people around you, basically. We learn to repress our truth of ourselves and what we really are feeling all the time. We are told and taught that these real emotions should be kept in check and felt only in the privacy of our own space when we're alone or with a very small, tight group who is fine with you being completely more yourself. We hear things like smile in public, toughen up. The fact is, the Fae don't do this to themselves or have any of these kinds of feelings that we are going through all the time. They have feelings, of course. They have lots of feelings, but they are raw to their true reaction and their feelings in whatever situation that they are in. They don't hide things. They don't siphon their feelings. They don't repress things because of society or because they're worried how someone else may perceive them. They just are. They are in all moments, always true in a given moment. Fae cannot lie. Most everyone's heard that lore. But the difference is, from what I've channeled, that it goes much farther than just speaking truths as in words. Their sense of being as a whole and who they are can't lie. That is why their emotions seem so raw, and while it's said, always to be wary of the Fae's wrath and temper, they do not siphon their feelings. They can't, and do not even understand the concept of doing that. I know Atri doesn't quite get it. His thought process can't seem to wrap around not being true and raw in any given moment. I have felt through my empathic connection with him that he has tried to see this from my perspective and kind of wrap his mind around how, and it's not happening. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why you might feel you need to be different for something or hide something that you're feeling, or he doesn't understand it. They are nature. Nature doesn't worry about what others might think. The wind isn't sitting there worrying if it's blowing too hard and making a scene, or if it's being too big, or whether it's too soft and what others will be thinking. The rain doesn't second guess if you should get people wet or feel bad when animals have to take cover from it. They don't wonder if they are acting correctly. They just are. Nature is. It always is. And it's always in the present. Which, of course, also means that Fae are never sorry for how they have felt in any given moment. For feeling sorry to them would mean regretting their truth, and that their truth in a moment was somehow wrong. When, how can it be wrong if it was their true feeling in that moment? Fae are very present. They're always in a now state. So to go back and change something that was the truth in a certain present state, it goes against their whole being of truth. And I will mention here, though, that this relates solely to the Fae thought processes from what I have channeled. And I do not recommend human beings to stop empathizing and looking into ourselves and our actions when we do hurt somebody. Remorse and apologizing for mistakes and hurting people is a good thing. It shows that we can internalize what goes on inside ourselves. We can learn from things that we do and process things internally, and we can grow from that as people. In order for us to learn and grow, that requires the ability of self-reflection, which leads me to what shadow work is in just a minute. The authentic self is about dismantling what we think we're supposed to be and becoming and accepting the truth of ourselves as valid and okay. True authenticity is extremely difficult as human beings because we have been so programmed with this need for acceptance by societal standards or near of it. We have insecurities, hurts, traumas that stem from, hoopla of sources, our upbringings, parental issues, religious teachings, and the whole of a society that creates walls to protect us from being authentic. Boundaries that we've built to mask our deeper truths that we don't want to possibly face or show, or, different fears and anxieties that don't allow our true expression to emerge, or even just simply our ideas on how we're supposed to be in order to be a good person. We can hide things about ourselves because we want to be this idea of this good person that we have in our head, or a successful person according to, whatever reasons you have. Insert your own here. How we look, how we're perceived, what makes us a good person or a successful person in life, or a manly person or a good father or a beautiful, attractive person. These are all things that the Fae do not understand. Like I said, these are things that they cannot really process. So my question is, how can we as humans be more authentic to our own true selves and truth? And this is where we come to the term shadow work. So, what is shadow work? You may have some idea of what this is. Maybe not, but it's almost become kind of a trendy term, an idea that tends to be tossed around a lot in various pagan and witchy type circles. But what really is it? What is shadow work? And I'm going to tell you, shadow work in simple terms is the purposeful journey of looking deeply into ourselves and taking a look at what things, issues, blocks, fears, triggers, angers, sadness, resent, guilt, etc., things that we like to label as more of the negative things about ourselves, and letting them surface. It's about facing them in a way that will bring on clarity of the soul and healing. Sometimes these are very obvious issues we have that we are very much aware of, but a lot of times true shadow work goes far deeper into things that you weren't even aware of. And I'll give you an example. For example, my biggest shadow issue, and I'll be open here, is actually one that most people would never consider a shadow thing. And I didn't realize it myself until very, very far down my shadow working path. And I am talking years. My obvious ones were in the way first. Like I said, I'm going to be open and honest here for a moment. I am a domestic violence survivor. And the PTSD surrounding that is obviously going to be my first go-to on this trek to face and come to terms with. That's a biggie. But I realized on going even deeper, and I mean really deeper, that my biggest shadow is that I care too much about other people's feelings. And I know everyone's probably thinking, okay, how is that bad? It isn't in moderation. in moderation, I feel it's wonderful to care about people. And I am for that as a person myself. And again, we are taught that this is always a good thing. But to be open and raw here, when I'm too afraid to say no to a man kissing me when I don't really want him to and I'm not comfortable because he seems like a nice guy and I don't want to hurt his feelings, that is not an okay thing. When I'm too afraid to speak up if I disagree about something someone is saying because I don't want to seem rude or make them feel awkward and uncomfortable, that is a bad thing. When I let people walk all over me and tell me what to do because I don't want to hurt their feelings or I'm worried about making them feel uncomfortable, that's how I end up in abusive relationships that I then have to deal with, When I care too much about how other people are feeling and thinking, that I don't have healthy boundaries, that is not a good thing. Shadow work can be very, very deep and even unsettling when it really starts to go deep and you realize deeper truths about yourself that you didn't even realize. But if we want to find some semblance of our real truth and our real authenticity of ourselves, the deep shadow work is really needed. Now, the catch is that shadow work is not just about addressing or fixing these bad types of conflicts we have within ourselves, although a lot of it does aid in that. I'm not going to lie, it has helped me a great deal going into these areas. But shadow work is about learning to accept that these things are a part of us and are a part of what makes up our experience of who we are today. They are all a part of who we are, even if we don't like it or it goes against what we want to be. But it's also not just about allowing yourself to go all raw. I'm going to embrace my anger and negative self and screw the world either. It's not just about letting all the negative aspect of you out and letting that take over either. Shadow work is about embracing into acceptance all that you are, which means not ignoring these positive aspects as well. What it's about is not hiding and blocking things that are a part of who you are. It's about finding true inner balance and acceptance, and thus in doing so, making yourself truly a whole person, not just pieces of yourself. You don't go from one extreme to the other. You go more as, like the Fae like to say, between. You want to be between. Of course, with the exception of not doing anything that harms you or others. Please be safe. Me not being able to say no because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings is not something that I should ever do again. Same goes if your big shadow is you're, say addicted to something that's hurting you or others. This goes for violence issues and so on. I never recommend or I'm implying to embrace and become a harm to yourself or to anybody else. I'm saying acknowledge that it's there and a part of you. Own it in yourself and then allow the other part of you to also blend in and become whole and balanced, not a harm. In fact, a lot of people find, when they do acknowledge and accept that, okay, this is something I feel, this reaction is in me, that it actually helps that to relax and not have to be so, banging right on the door either. And then you can learn to understand, where it's really coming from and channel it in a positive and more productive way in whatever way that means for you. Or even just, maybe if you really learn to understand where is this coming from that is inside me, it might even help you to address it. And it may simmer down and resolve as an issue because of it. Anyway, I highly, highly recommend shadow work for anyone. It is really the only way in truly finding your authentic, real self, and to become whole enough as a person to allow that to emerge. Now, do Fae do shadow work? Not from what I have gathered from my channeling. Again, they already live in their true self without filtering, so there's really no need to. But this does bring up my last topic. Where do we draw the line between completely not filtering to the point of, again, hurting other people? Not just physically, but emotionally, and being in our truth. This is where it gets tricky. Okay, Fae don't draw the lines, but Fae can also be dangerous beings. I have never not said that in any of my topics, not in my novel, my book, not in, anywhere on my blog, if you're following any of that. There are Fae that even lure and kill people or eat them. Okay, my topic of taking their lead with becoming more authentic does not mean everything all Fae do is what we as humans should strive to do. Okay, they are a very different species and have very different thought processes. And with, of course, all due respect to Fae everywhere, I am not encouraging anyone to become a dangerous or even an emotionally hurtful person, and definitely not someone who's out there being abusive emotionally, physically, verbally to other people. The reason this comes to light, and I'm putting this in here, stems from a conversation that I had last week with someone. This person was adamantly talking down about someone right in front of them. They were making fun of their identity and their terms for those identity issues they have. And they were saying all of this fully knowing that this person could hear them and how they felt about it and that they were getting hurt. I stepped in and stopped it. And I told them that, they're literally right here. They can hear you. And that I'm not going to stand here and let you trash somebody's feelings and identity. That's hurtful. And they came back at me. It was kind of ironic because I don't even think they didn't even know about, my speaking with Atri and the Fae. They didn't know any of this background on me. And they came at me with, I'm speaking my truth. My truth is valid. I have a right to speak my real truth and don't need to babysit anybody else's feelings. That's on them, and I advise you to do the same. And it made me stop for a moment. I'm not going to lie, because that kind of hit home, because I know that's everything that I've been gathering with this whole thing on authenticity at the same time, right? But I told them that yes, your truth is valid as your truth. But the big picture point is, why purposely hurt and disrespect somebody else when there's no reason for it? And this entire conversation got me brainstorming and thinking afterwards, more shadow work, on just this balance of being your truth and yet respecting and not hurting others. And I mean, if some bigoted person devalued and threatened somebody for being gay, for being of a different religion, for being, of a different race, I mean, it gets, all these things can go on and on. And I'm thinking about this in my head, like, obviously people can't be doing that, but you should be able to be being, your authentic self at the same time. I'm very for, finding your inner truth, Anyway, so I started really brainstorming this because obviously people, they have no right to be trashing anybody. Nobody has a right to be trashing anybody physically or emotionally. Nobody has the right to be harming anybody else physically and emotionally, or their things or their rights. And anyway, I really went deep on this. I meditated. I was talking to my higher self. I was talking to my guides. I was, bringing in Atri's perspective, although it was a little harder for him because of his whole mindset with, not understanding filtering. But I really talked to my guides on this one. And, this is what I came up with, is that the person that I was talking to, the one I had the conversation with, this is what my guides have come to me with. Or it could be, the bigoted person in that other example. We can go on and on. They aren't actually being their authentic selves. They think they are through these outbursts of I can do and say whatever I want, and everyone else can take a hike and care for themselves and screw off. This isn't real authenticity of their self. And what I was told what this is there's a deeper issue. There's a serious deeper issue with something like that. Either one, they're hurt. Something either hurt them where they were screaming up blocks or hate towards other people in order to protect themselves. Or two, they are seriously deflecting some kind of deeper insecurity that they have about themselves. These people really need to dive deeper under the layers of the shadow work to find out why they feel they need to so strongly shut out other people's feelings or feel so much hate, and why they feel they need to protect their own feelings at such a cost to everybody else around them. I can guarantee you that somebody hurt them, or there's some serious deeper insecurity issue that they are trying to mask and protect. And this, like I said, this isn't being true to yourself. This is blocking your real self. This is blocking your real truth. This is being defensive and deflective. Being true to yourself doesn't equal not respecting anyone but yourself. That's defense. They are two entirely different things. Anyway, I highly recommend shadow work, people. It is life-changing. Peel away the layers. Ask yourself, why do I get this feeling when this happens? Why am I feeling triggered in this moment? Why does what that person said irritate me so much? Why does it anger me when X, Y, and Z happens? Why am I really, fill in the blank here, people. Fill in your blanks. Go deep. Do the work, and then reevaluate and do the work again. Authenticity isn't always empowering. Authenticity is humbling. But then, and only then, can we be our real selves. And that is what we can take away from the Fae today. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this majorly weighted talk and found some inspirational insights. If you do have any questions, though, or comments, or want to share your own experiences with shadow work, please feel free to add them below. Like the video, and of course subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I do have new content come out. Of course, always be safe and have a great day. Goodbye.